Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate S&S. I hope everyone's having a great day. Weekend has now passed. We had quite a bit of rain, so that was kind of nice for us. It wasn't too hot. Gave that garden some of the extra water it's really needing. Corn and all is looking fantastic out there. We'll have to get out there one day when it's dried up a little bit for me to walk around and not get stuck down in the mud. So, couple things I want to discuss today. So obviously on this channel we discuss prepping, we discuss different ways to grow food, obviously. But one of the things I really wanted to kind of just encourage people out there right now, when you go out, I know there's a lot of people that are trying to make people aware and let them know, hey, you need to be prepping. And that's good, but you need to be careful about doing that in your community areas and gauge more about how your neighbors and stuff feel about prepping. If they kind of support it, then you can discuss it with them. But you don't want to just come out and tell total strangers. They kind of have an idea where you live to say, hey, we're prepping, we're getting a bunch of food and all this other stuff and all, because that's who's going to be at your doorstep when SHTF actually happens, guys. So just be careful about who you give that information out to. You may be wondering, well, you're on the internet and you're giving all this information, stuff like that. Well, you're assuming that I only prep this location or that I'm prepping in this location. So it's one of the great things about having an RV. It opens up a lot of boundaries for you guys. But my biggest concern right now is what we're seeing happen, not just within the government, but the reaction that we're seeing from the people. So we have, I would think by now, either side, you should know that the other side is crooked. So you need to place yourself somewhere in the middle ground of it where you have absolute truth, which is actually spoken in the Bible, guys. And that's where you're going to find the truth and then make your decisions from there. But one of the main things that I'm noticing is there is a lot of dissent being built up toward believers and today's society, not just in this country. It's getting bad in this country, but it's worse in other countries as well. And we're going to continue to see that build up. Watching for different signs and stuff to let you know that you're getting close to the end of days. But what people seem to have this misconception is that they think that as soon as you start seeing the sign, then that means it's time to get out of here. These signs have been building up since before I was born. That's what people need to realize. We're told that it comes in as labor pains, and that's what we're seeing. Now, we're getting close to the point of deliverance, but I myself have never given birth, but I'm sure any woman that can tell you that's had natural childbirth, especially those who didn't have any kind of painkillers or anything like that going on, I'm sure that moment just before the baby is delivered is probably the worst moment you can experience in a physical type of a pain, I would imagine. So, and just seeing, going into contraction stuff, you can tell that your wives are hurting, guys. So it's one of the things we looking at it from a standpoint where we kind of like, okay, well, it's going to be like labor pains, but then we pull away from it when we're like, oh, well, that's going to get kind of really ugly, so we're probably out of here before that. But I don't think that that's what's going to happen. That is why we prep. So now, right after that deliverance happens, we're supposed to be out of here, and that's great. Those preps, they will have sustained you for a while, but they're going to help sustain somebody else, because at that moment, folks, they're going to have to explain this stuff away. And Hollywood has given this really great view that everyone's just going to disappear. Okay, but if you read in the book of Matthew and you're reading about where Jesus is talking about, you have two men walking a field, one is taken and the other's left behind. There's two women grinding at a milling stone, and one's taken, the other's left behind. And it asks the question, well, where do they go? Well, it says to where the vultures gather or where the eagles gather, depending if you're reading in Matthew, Mark, or Luke, and whether you're reading King James or New King James. But you're looking at predatory birds that gather in areas where they scavenge. Okay, and that's what most of those birds do, is scavenge food for the most part. So what are we looking at there? You're looking at, could be potentially a big pile of bodies of people who have gone to be with the Lord. You don't need your body for that. Understand, people have this misconception where the body has to go to. Well, what about people that have been dead for 2,000 years, wasn't properly embalmed? There's nothing left of those bodies, but yet they're the ones who rise first. So something to think about. Don't always believe Hollywood. If you read 1st, 2nd Thessalonians, you're going to realize that a lot of those Hollywood movies that they give out there, that stuff is not actually biblical. So like the ones where it talks about right after the tribulation period, the people that were going to church but weren't really saved, and they go, okay, well, now I'm ready to commit, and then they become the next group of believers. But the Bible doesn't support that. It says those that knew, all right, they knew the truth, and they chose to embrace unrighteousness and push aside righteousness. That those people who made that choice, that they're caused to fall into a delusion so that they will never come to that fullness with the Lord. So does that what we see in the movies? No, it's not. I mean, in the movies, it makes it like, okay, well, everyone's going to get this second chance. Mind you, now is your second chance. While you draw breath, that is your second chance, folks. Uh, I don't get this thing where like this is our first chance, but we're going to get a second chance. And then it goes into some people say, well, when they died, then they're kind of in a waiting period. They got to decide where they want to go. That's totally false. That is, that you don't make that decision at that point. While you draw breath is when you decide whether you're going to accept the Lord's path or follow the way of the world. And we can see the way the world is heading. Understand when you're trying to drive motivation with fear, and this is something you need to think about too. So I don't promote fear mongering. And the reason for that is because if you're planning from a point of fear, you're on a path to fear, and fear leads one place, and that is destruction. So don't prep from fear. You need to prep from a standpoint where you're praying and you're believing and you're holding faith, but you need to prep and know that the Lord's going to be with you in that. But if you're coming up to fear, it's always going to come up to a situation where you're having to stand off of violence, and that's when destruction happens, guys. So you need to really look at the way you're prepping. Look at how you're getting your food set up. I know there's a lot of people that are trying to get started into prepping. And I know it can seem a little disconcerting, especially with these food prices we're seeing. Or maybe you're going to the store and the shelves, maybe they're not completely empty, but there's just really nothing on them and nothing that's really that you want to put in your preps. So what do? Well, prep what you eat. But at this point, the way prices are, if I find something that's reasonable, whether it's something I'm going to really enjoy or not, I'll go ahead and prep it. And the reason for that is when you starve and you haven't eaten for 2 or 3 days, that thing of artichokes or whatever it is you're buying, that's going to actually be a pretty tasty meal, I'm sure. So always think about it from a standpoint of, okay, this is our main preps and this is our emergency rations. And you need to be making sure that you have an emergency ration as well, and you need to have a point within your preps where if you're no longer able to be putting food into that prep, and you're having to use it consistently, once you get to a certain point, you should immediately start rationing and figure out what your daily needs are based off of what your job is going to be within your prepping community. If you've got someone in their sewing, they probably don't need as much in the calorie department as someone who's out patrolling or hunting or whatever the situation may be, working in the gardens and stuff. So you have to really kind of look and see how that rationing goes. And that's typically the way that the military and stuff does that type of stuff. That is the way government things are set up. That's why we, the people, if a situation comes up that they have to ration food, well, that's why we don't have as much food right now. It's because they're rationing a lot of that stuff away for themselves, and we're telling you try to do the same with what you've got, and it's going to make it a little easier on you. Because if you're having to go around like the story we talked about from Haiti the other day, guys, and you're waiting on these food drops and things like that from government aids from around the world, they come in. And the moment that they come in, I mean, you've got some helicopters flying through clear skies. They obviously know something's being dropped because of the cargo chopper. And then they come in, they just take it from the people. And that's what will be happening in this country. We already see stuff like that happening when there's a natural disaster, like happened down here when Hurricane Michael hit. And a guy shot another man who was getting his water to his car, but he wanted some of his water and the guy didn't share. And the other dude figured, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a shot and get what I can. Now he's serving a life sentence, and that family never got their water to begin with. And did they survive? Yeah. So maybe it wasn't as big of a need to run out into a situation where there's emergency stuff happening. That's the worst place you could go. I think Katrina taught us that, where they had people locked away in these stadiums and stuff. And not only were they normal people like us, but they were also sexual deviants and predators and stuff. So there was a lot of issues with that down there. Now, I know that's not something they like to talk about because that is a failure on the government's behalf. But hey, that's the reality we live in. That's what you need to be looking at, folks. And that's why we prep over here. So now I do see some of the comments where people are like, hey, up in the area or whatever, want to hook up and, maybe check on joining the group. As far as I'm concerned, the group is closed, guys. That's the way it is. I wish everybody the best, but the problem is when you get to these late stages, it's now people that are kind of panicking, or maybe they haven't been able to make those connections and stuff. But you have to be careful, and you have to be doing your vetting or whatever you want to call it. You don't want some psycho job coming into your place. Not calling y'all psychos, but it's a reality that can happen. People tell you what you want to hear, and you think they're a really good person right up to the point of destruction. And that's what we see happen with our voting process here in this country. And honestly, it comes down to people like, well, there's no way that Joe Biden got the votes he got. Did he? Man, I don't know. If there was some voter fraud there, we would be hearing Trump standing on a soapbox on the corner, screaming at the top of his lungs. I don't see that. I see where he says things didn't seem like they were quite right. And yeah, there is voting fraud that happens in every election, and both sides are guilty of it. Don't sit there and think that one side, oh no, we play by the rules. They're politicians. Stop trusting politicians. Trust your local leadership that you vote into office. If you get up enough people and these people are holding office and no one's voting for them, then it's time to do recounts and it's time to have an investigation drawn into it. And you, as local citizens of your area, you can do that. That is your power. I mean, you go out and you do it in a violent way. You go out and you do it the legal way, and they will get these people removed. Like down here, we had some issues after Hurricane Michael, and a lot of the people that were in the government office are no longer in those offices. A lot of them are actually in prison right now because they were taking a lot of that cash. Panama City, the higher ups, I guess, say the councils and councilmen and councilwomen and all these other types of people in these high positions, they were funneling that money into their own groups, like for things that need to be done around the road and stuff like that. They would start their own businesses, fund it in, so the money would hit their own pocket rather than supporting local companies. And then they were just taking ways, and they were finding ways to liquidate those assets into their own accounts and stuff. So that's why they're getting busted. The FBI has been busting them for the last couple years now. So we were supposed to hear more information on that, but they're having to find a change of venue to actually try a lot of these cases, because to try it in this area would be very hard to get a impartial jury. It really would be, because the people down here, there's still houses, there's still families and stuff that are suffering from this storm, but they don't care. It all comes up to get a moment in there. You can talk on the freaking microphone in front of a camera, and then when they fly off, you never hear nothing else about it again. They don't come to check to make sure everything's there, make sure there was enough. But we'll send billions and trillions of dollars to other countries and not even ask another question about it. And then next thing you know, your enemies are getting weapons of war, like Iran supposedly having a nuclear missile now at this point. Do they? Man, I don't know. Supposedly that they have successfully tested, and they even got on and they were starting to make threats about New York, that they were going to hit New York and all this other stuff. Have we heard much about that in the news? No, we're not, because they want to keep your focus off of the enemies abroad, and they want to take and make enemies within. So if they could keep us separated, our government can make whatever deal they want to with anyone they want to. They don't answer to anybody. But if the American people actually unite in one voice, all right, then these people have to start paying attention. Our Supreme Courts has to start paying attention and raise up leaders to get in there and help clean this mess out. So there's a lot of people that are wanting DeSantis to run for president right now. I hope he doesn't. I hope he stays in Florida. He's doing a great job cleaning this mess up down here. The reason I hope he doesn't go to Florida, we've seen with Donald Trump when he went in office, there's only so much they can do. They have opposition on all sides from all parties, because they are all corrupt and they only want their insiders in those positions. So we have to start clearing the House. We have to start voting the right Congress, men, women, whatever, in. Make sure they're constitutionalists. Make sure that they are natural born Americans. The reason I say that, now I'm not talking about just white. I'm talking a natural born American. Okay, we're getting people from other countries that are bringing their other countries' failures into our country and trying to make it law. Sharia law has been implemented in some areas where it's not it's not all of it, but it's parts and pieces of it. All right, well, this is America. This is not Iran. This is not any of these other countries. This is America. We are Americans, and we're going to live by American standards. We're going to live by a Constitution. And when we actually make that point across by voting these people out of office, the ones that get up there and say that they're married, but it's actually their brother. So either they married their brother, or they just lied and said they were married so they could get the brother into the state. But this person holds office in America. Yes, I'm talking about Ilhan Omar, however you pronounce her name. It's hard to pronounce. But anyway, that's who I'm talking about. Marries her brother to get him in this country. Now, once, that's illegal in this country. Now, I don't know about over there, but it's illegal in this country. So that is, she broke the law. Why is she still in office? Don't know. And then we get these people that are voted on for, I have no idea. You got freaking the bride of Mr. Ed over there, AOC, with her, crazy The reason There's so many deer being hit on the roads because we don't have enough deer crossing signs. They don't know where to cross. That doesn't even make sense. The deer is not looking for a sign to cross. That is for the driver coming down. That road has deer on it. You need to slow your butt down. But if she'd come out with that type of thing, so maybe we need to post a few more speed limit signs and add a few deer crossing signs so people know they're still in deer. That would have made sense. But that's not what she said. She said from a standpoint that the deer don't know where to cross. That's pretty ridiculous. And that constantly this woman comes out with something that is non-constitutional. It infringes upon the rights of everyone but her small pool of constituents. So whoever is voting this person into office, stop. Vote for somebody else, man. You're destroying your own area, man. You're hurting yourselves. So just what I want to share with everybody today. Hope everyone's having a great day. Remember, get food, be stocking up, guys. Medicine, stuff like that. It's one of the things we've been kind of hammering is trying to make sure we got enough insulins and things like that back. So, insurance only covers so much of it, then you got to pay the rest out of your pocket. Now, if I was trying to do that and stock a bunch of food right now, it would be almost impossible because of the cost of this stuff. But understand those costs were actually lower in the past administration. They are now higher in this administration. Now we're hearing a promise that they want to pass a medical bill that's going to make prescriptions cheap. Well, we already had that going until they jacked the prices up. So pay attention to what's going on. Don't revote this administration. And folks, man, come on. I'm not telling you to vote for Donald Trump. I'm telling you, let's wait and see who our candidates are and find a constitutional president with American values. And that's all I can ask for out of any other American out there. Everyone have a wonderful day.